Welcome back to Destiny Underground. We are going to be covering the Curse of Osiris and new ways to play stream. Just a quick recap, thoughts, impressions. Blanket statement: if you didn't like Destiny before, you're not going to like it now, and we're going to talk about why. We're going to start off right off the bat with the new public event. It's one public event. I did see in the stream another public event started, but I believe it was one we've already played. I think there's only one new public event for this destination that is huge, but static. So I foresee it being cool once, and then when you get your brand new, most rewarding loot ever, and it's 2 tokens and a blue class mark, you'll never play it again.
Yeah, the public event looks interesting. Something I think that's one of the first things that they ended up showing off. But I'm not really sure what to think about it. Like you said, it's static, so it's always gonna happen, and it's always gonna be the same regardless of what you're doing. But at the same time, I do like how they're trying to at least like do something different with it, like make it more intricate. Because all the other ones, you essentially it's a 2 or 3 minute thing, then you do it. Whereas this one seems to be more of like an event than just like a passerby type thing. So I liked what they're doing, but I do like based on like the game slice that they had that they were showing off, and I don't know if it is that it's just a game slice or if it's just like an actual build that they had imported in so that Deej or whoever could like play or they could show gameplay off. The rewards weren't great. Like
Yeah,
they showed two chests, and they were like, Deej was talking about how it was like great that they had two chests, but like when both chests are just giving 1 token and then like a random blue item, like that's not going to help anybody. And
yeah,
considering that the token currency is already fairly broken as it is, like introducing more token currency into like a public event system where the public event probably won't be played very heavily. Like people will walk by and probably do it, but it's not going to be something that people are going to be doing
yeah. It's not gonna be like,
consistently, I
let's go to
imagine.
Mercury and do this public event.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something that is there, and it's something that's cool, and I do like how they're doing something with it. I just don't see how it like changes the way that it is, and because they built the whole area, like this whole circular pattern around this public event, like it. I mean, it's good in the sense that you're going to get more use out of the environment, but at the same time, like it kind of makes the environment stale because you're going to go through it once and you're essentially going to see everything else, and a lot of the environment is locked off due to the public event. Like there's towers on each side that are locked off, and there's a middle area that's locked off because of the
Yeah.
public event. So all it seems that you get is like a outer ring, which it looks like you can traverse in like 5 minutes. So, I mean, all of Mercury, or at least
So,
like the
kind of
lighthouse.
a new destination.
Yeah, I was gonna say like their vision of Mercury is kind of it's kind of lacking because it's just this circular area apart from the Infinite Forest, which we haven't really seen. Um, but I mean, just like the standard area is fairly small considering there's 4 to 5 different places at least in all of the other destinations,
Yeah,
including Titan, which is just a bunch of barges,
yeah,
essentially.
but bigger than it looked like it would be. It still feels bigger. Let's talk about that Infinite Forest because it's not procedural. We're not allowed to use that word. It's
Yeah, they made sure not to
artist
say it was
created,
original.
tailor made experiences that can be randomly put together, but they'd like us to say it's more intelligent than randomly put together. And every time you go to one of the future, past, present, other present, it's going to be a different path to get there. But when you get there, it's going to be the same present, past, future, other present. So I was worried when they got there and I saw Fallen in the dark future that for lore reasons it's dumb because it should just be the Vex. But I also think I'm just kind of burnt out on the 4 alien races we've been fighting for 3 years, and I'm more interested in the black triangles coming our way that might be something new and possibly with better AI.
Yeah, I mean the Infinite Forest is a good idea. Like all of this stream and all the things that are happening with DLC one. There's like good ideas intertwined with what's happening, but it's not really changing much of anything. Like it's cool that you have these like I don't want to say randomly generated, and the right word isn't procedurally generated, but we'll say like bricklaying schemes where you have like, like point A might get like matched with like middle part C, and that will get matched with like end part D, and like that's your journey to get to like whatever one of the three destinations that you're going to get. So like you're going to get some variation depending on when you enter the Infinite Forest and what the game has to offer you depending on enemies and whatnot. So like it's going to keep things semi fresh, but it all depends on like what kind of rewards and what kind of incentives we have to go into the Infinite Forest.
Yeah.
I mean, the lore behind the Infinite Forest seems awesome, but it's just one of those things where I don't think we're gonna get much of it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I do like having the random enemies, but it's one of those things where you have to kind of take back or look at it from like a developer standpoint, to where like they have fallen in like the dark future because like it's semi randomly generated, and that's kind of how it is. But it also is fairly low breaking. Like there shouldn't be like hive randomly in the thing, but because they're using like Vex like time manipulation, they kind of get it
Yeah.
out, and
I
it's
don't
just some
want to call it lore
variation.
breaking because they cover their asses with the lore by saying it's a Vex simulation where the Vex wonder if the Fallen survived, but I'm not
Yeah,
buying it.
but that's like saying the whole Walking Dead is Rick's dream. Like it works, but it's just
But it's,
lazy writing.
yeah, basically.
That's what it comes down to. So I like it. I like the concept. I like what they're doing with it, but like reasons why they're doing it. And I guess I don't know what it is. And I think the Destiny 2 team doesn't really know what they're doing. But I do think that the one thing that I can say is consistent between like this game, Destiny 1, Destiny 2, and now this DLC is that I think they're pushing more the journey than the reward or the end, because like you're gonna reach the same endpoint conclusion in like everything that you're doing with like every enemy or every person, but like the stories that you're building as you're doing it are more important than, I guess, the end point, the end conclusion, and the gear that you're getting, or like the experiences or what have you, because that's essentially what the Infinite Forest is that they're building a new journey for you, but the end
Mm-hmm.
point is always going to be the same or similar. You got one of 3 points, but yeah, I mean, I like it, but I'll need to see more. I'll need to get more. I think that is it's a plus. I think the public event, I would say, is a net negative,
Yeah,
but I think this is a net positive for the DLC.
1 for 1. So, another thing that bothered me and you both is Deege's insistence on talking about people that play solo and how they won't be left alone in a social game. Because I've
Yeah,
always felt that Destiny alone wasn't how Destiny was meant to be played in the first place, and the fact that they're going to start catering to them, it just brings more to light this overall casualization that Destiny 2 has taken compared to Destiny 1, and that's gonna be good in the short term, but we're gonna see, and we're already seeing now, that the player base is just gonna start hemorrhaging because there's nothing to do for the hardcore players, and those are the ones that spend the money on your microtransactions and things.
yeah. I mean, there was at least 3 points that I remember specifically during the public event, during their like lighthouse walkthrough part two that they did, and then during the Infinite Forest gameplay at the end that they had, where Deej specifically decided to point out that like this would be accessible and totally possible to do via solo play, which I thought was interesting considering like this game's tagline, or like the not official, unofficial tagline has been like better with friends, or play together or things
Mm-hmm.
like that. To where, I mean, they were building clans so specifically that I think that they're trying to shift now that they know that their player base is dropping, to more like solo play, which might be the reason why the area is smaller. I'm not sure. I don't want to say that anything that we're doing or anything the way that the game is taking place is actually affecting any decisions that are going to take place until like was this Taken King December DLC, because I do believe
Mm-hmm.
that this DLC was done by game launch. By whenever the game was launched and like put on the
Most of,
disc.
yeah,
This DLC was more
most
than
of it.
likely 90% finished, and they were able to make slight tweaks to it depending on what's happening. But this is
You can
greenlit
tell by the
100%
vendor
gold.
screen that this was set in stone pretty much because nothing has changed. Tokens haven't changed. Nothing really has changed from this base game to Curse of Osiris.
Yeah, and I mean, if you didn't like or if you don't like what's happening with Destiny 2 currently, I don't think this is going to change your mind in any big way. I mean, they brought up at one point what they were doing, like you said, with the vendor screen, to where like there is more stuff that you can do with the vendor screen. They did like a walk around in the lighthouse, and they showed Brother Vance's inventory, but at the same time, like you still have like the token system that they're using, and it still is going to be capped at whatever the soft cap is for gear for vendors. But you do have the ability to like hand in some stuff and get some stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
like you get the lore tablets that Osiris is going to get you, which is part of like, I guess their DLC one end game
It
that they have,
is,
which
which is something I wanted to hit on, that we looked at it, and it's probably going to take just as long as it took to get the artifacts in Rise of Iron. The math checks out. 3 a week, 4 weeks, 1 month of things to do. But I don't, and I don't think Rob does either, expect them to take more than a day of that week. So I wouldn't call it like a goal to work towards. I feel like it's something you're just going to log in and get on Tuesday, and then come back next Tuesday until you have the full set, and then be like, okay, now what?
yeah, and I mean I this is like a kind of like an offsetting thing for me. The weapons are, because I do think that because the weapons are static, and I think they're sticking to their guns as far as armor and weapons being static. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Like I said, with the game, like it's shipped and it's going as is until they decide to implement something big, and that wouldn't happen until next September. They're sticking to their guns, but they're going to be adding, like they said, different guns to the sandbox every so often and making changes. I guess this is their way to like add guns to the sandbox to like change or direct the meta that where they think
Mm-hmm.
it should go without pushing us too hard or
Which
like
I will
nerfing an
say,
entire subset of guns. So overall it's good. Like overall you're getting more guns, and it'll add stuff to your already fairly small like plethora of guns that you have. But the fact that it's hidden behind this stuff that really isn't going to take all that long, and I don't want to say time gated content because it's
mm-hmm.
not necessarily time gated, but the fact that on 3 characters, depending on if they're random or if it's set for the week, like
Right.
people will probably have them done, in a couple weeks, and then what,
Yeah.
you know?
I will say that if this is how they're going to influence the meta, I like the idea better than just like nerfing an entire archetype or nerfing a weapon to the point that it's unusable. I like the idea of introducing new weapons to challenge what's currently king, instead of just completely taking that way of play out for players that might like it. It's giving
Yeah.
players that don't like it a way to still succeed in Crucible.
I mean, I think they do need to do like balancing sandbox updates to like gear and subclasses and guns, but I don't think that like huge nerfs that Destiny 1 was famous for are necessary. Adding guns and then making slight tweaks is probably the best bet
I think,
for that.
and we might get it, but it probably won't be until next fall. I think the subclasses in Destiny 2 need a complete rework.
Yeah, and I mean, I unfortunately, I mean, we'll see once we get our hands on this, and I think that's going to be towards the end of what we talk about, but we won't know how we feel about this until we actually get our hands on it.
Yeah.
But this is starting to look fairly cyclical as far as like what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And if they decide that they need to like rework everything in Destiny 2, I don't know if I can be expected to pay $40 or whatever they set the price point as to get your reworked and not broken game when
Yeah.
you had a product in Destiny 1 that was fine and could use improvements, but that's what you use the sequel to do. But they took 2 steps forward and what seemed to be like 4 or 5 steps backwards with what they were doing. Like they switched this token economy that we already are not a big fan of. They took away all the static or all the random rolls on gear and armor. They made the subclasses oversimplified, and they just basically took the whole game, and instead of making it this wide and this deep, they made it this wide and this deep, like
Yeah.
just barely, just huge width but almost no depth, and we're not getting any more depth here. Like we're getting slightly more depth, but more, and when it really comes down to it, we're just getting more width. They're just widening the game.
As a viewer, as a buyer, if I hadn't already bought the expansion pass with the collector's edition because I fell into the marketing and hoped that Destiny 2 would be better, I wouldn't buy this expansion. I wouldn't recommend that you buy this expansion. I would recommend that we speak with our wallets, and because the game's not a failure. It sold enough copies that even if this expansion sells none, we'll get another one. So I think this could be a good way to tell them this isn't working for us and this isn't what you need to do to bring the players back. Just don't buy it. And that's coming from a huge fan of this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already bought it until at least DLC 2, so we'll
Yep.
see. We'll continue to do this. We'll continue to like talk about what we feel, but I mean, I won't be able to say whether or not I recommend this based upon what's happening with it, but the state of Destiny 2 is what it is at this point. Like it I don't think they're making any sort of large sweeping changes with what's happening.
Until next
If anything,
fall.
that yeah, until next fall at the very earliest. I mean, they might do something crazy and just like update this, like release some sort of free update
By
or
all
like
means.
really be working hard at DLC 2 and like just change everything. So they might make us completely wrong, and like I hope to be proven wrong at every
I'll tell you
step
what
of the way.
will happen. We're going to see Anthem's next gameplay trailer soon. Maybe even at this December event, that PlayStation experience. Maybe then, if it is fantastic, we might see changes sooner. But I don't know. Bungie's really stubborn lately. They really seem to be on this high horse that they can do no wrong. And I want to talk about that right now with the recent news that just broke on their rigged experience system. Do you have their stuff pulled up on that?
Yeah, I have approximately what's up, but I don't have I don't have like the statement or anything like that. I know approximately what you're talking about with the Clarion Call event.
Yeah, their statement was really PC, and they acted like they discovered this system wasn't working as intended. And Rob said perfectly, "You don't discover that your XP system is hiding the real XP gains and making you think you're getting more XP." And he called it shady. What was it? Disingenuous, and a third word that means the same thing. But it's one of those things where even just playing the game casually, it did feel like maybe I didn't get bright Ingrams as often, but I just chalked that up to not playing enough rewarding activities. But it definitely, there are points where I figured it's been a while since I got a bright Ingram. I wonder what's up with that. And I wonder if this shady practice was even extending into the 3 a week bonus. I wonder if you even get a bonus for the first 3 after this came to light.
Oh, I mean, I don't at this point. I don't think it's out of the question to call something like that into question. Because when it really comes down to it, it's just shitty business practices. Like I don't really want to mince words. Like that's essentially like you're de-incentivizing gameplay and incentivizing the purchasing of your bright Ingrams, in which calling them what they are, they're loot boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And you want us to buy these loot boxes to get these items that we cannot purchase ourselves. I swear to you, the bright Ingram purchases would be similar, if not more, than what you're getting now if you actually had just like a list of a store. If you literally just listed all the items, people would pay for what they wanted, and they'd see what it is, and they do the calculations, buy the amount of silver that they wanted, and buy everything that they wanted. But instead, you're
Exactly.
like, like people just get frustrated opening loot boxes when they don't get what they want, and if they get like one out of like the 4 things that they want, they'll be like, all right, I already spent like $10. Like, fuck it, I'm not going to do it anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I Eververse, one of the many things that Destiny 1 like got, if you added them, I'm not saying microtransactions are correct. I'm not loot box heavy fan. I don't like it at all. I think it should be taken out of the game 100% completely. But if you're going to add them, add like you're going to add an area or a shop where we can buy cosmetics, make it a shop. Don't make it an area
Yeah.
where I can buy loot boxes. Like that's just it's rude to me as a consumer. As a player, doesn't it makes you think that I won't spend my money on a game that I like. You have to, it feels like you
It's
feel like you have to
gambling.
trick me into spending money.
It's 100% gambling. It's a random roll on items. You give up your money and hope that you get something better in return. And it's stupid. I mean, look what's going on with Battlefront. With EA, it's even bled from Battlefront into their new Need for Speed game, where just company-wide EA is having to rethink what they can get away with. They'll say sorry or whatever, and it's not. I don't buy it. It's 100%. They're pushing the lines to see what they can get away with ever since microtransactions were introduced to big AAA games, and it's already insulting enough that we pay full price for a game that has mobile-like microtransaction systems in it. So I think we're finally seeing the crest at the top of the hill, and it's just going to burst the bubble and come crashing down. That's me being an optimist, which hasn't paid off.
One can hope, but when it comes down to it, there's definitive evidence that they were throttling or bottlenecking the experience on people during the Clarion Call event, which is not good, and it is incentivizing.
It wasn't just Clarion Call, was it? I thought it was game wide. They just noticed it during the Clarion Call event.
Like I said, it might have been game wide before that. I'm not sure, but if it wasn't proven to be game wide before that, I don't think it's out of the question to call something like that into question, because there's no either way, it proves some part of their statement wrong, because their whole crux of their statement is that they discovered it, they're fixing it. It wasn't working as intended. Is their thing? Their quotes wasn't working as intended. So if it wasn't working as intended, what was the intended? What was the intended result? Because you would have either had to introduce this thing into the Clarion Call event, or this, just with the massive experience gains, made it easier for us to figure out, what the threshold for Bright Engram gain was. So it's very possible this has been in the game since the beginning, which, I mean, I have never spent any money on the Bright Engrams, thank God. But if I had, I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. So,
yeah, same.
You're telling me that I spent my money because you didn't force me to spend my money, but you de-incentivized the Bright Engrams. You basically made it to the point where I was like, okay, I can't get them by playing, so I have to buy them, or I have to get what I want, because the shop's going to be gone, and the spicy ramen emote's not going to be there, which it's not going to be there after
which
this
makes
season.
That seem even more shitty now in context that you realize they're taking these things away and making it harder for you to legitimately get them in game.
So I mean, I'm happy that this got put out, but it also just on top of the many things that I've experienced in Destiny 2, just with the overall oversimplification of the game and the lack of depth, but breadth of width that they have, it's just disappointing,
And I don't
really know what else to say about it.
I've mentioned Anthem a few times now, hoping it's better, but I don't want to put all my money on that horse either, because it is EA, and they're the ones under fire right now for microtransactions across multiple games.
If you want to take a quick tangent here, Bungie, but not Bungie, BioWare is actually the one that made microtransactions something that was relevant with the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. There was somebody who spent over $10,000 on microtransactions, and the guy, they were looking at a developer during an interview who had left BioWare at the time, was talking, and he's like, yeah, I mean, people could buy $6 on a game, but if we can, put out there what would be digital currency, you're selling access to the game for money. That model is unbeatable.
Yeah.
So I mean, EA was the one who started it, but it was BioWare with the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, and everything's just spiraled since then. So if you want to blame anybody, you can. That's the origin. That's the origin point, as far as I'm concerned.
Origin, EA, BioWare. It's full circle, man. It's just
coincidence.
Full circle.
Well, I mean, but yeah, I mean, back to Destiny and this new ways to play DLC. Like, overall, I think there are good things that are being brought in it. I just don't think that we're going to see any massive, arching, sweeping changes that we were looking for. We're going to get more of the same. Which, I mean, for the money that I spent, I was happy with what I got from Destiny 2. I just would have liked, and that's really what it comes down to, is that with the way that Destiny 1 ended. And I do have to take into account that it was a 3-year-old game that had been adding and being added to at that point.
Yeah.
I just wanted more. Like, I was expecting more, and I just didn't get more. And I mean, with this, we are going to get more, but I don't know how much more, and that only time will really tell.
So, stream, 5 out of 10. Expansion, wait and see. Hold your money. I think we'll get 1 or 2 weeks worth of good content out of it, but if that changes, we'll definitely be here to let you guys know how we feel after we actually play it. And we'll be here next week to talk about the new loot and if any of it looks enticing.
What is the actual thing? New ways to play was a new gear to earn. Wednesday, November 29th is the stream.
Hopefully we'll have that out that day. We never know. Bandwidth is always a fickle thing, but we'll get it out as soon as we possibly can. This week was delayed because of the holidays and everything. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Thanksgiving. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up, if that's cool with you. All
Good.
right. Eyes up, Guardians.